There we go.
I'm going to pause recording. Come on. Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. I want to thank everybody for showing up tonight. This is the East Central Phoenix Wharf Sites public meeting to review updates for what's going on at all the sites, as well as the proposed remedial action plan for the 48th Street and Indian School Road site. On the 24th of October, 2024, and it's starting at 6:02 p.m. My name is Barb Boschert. I'm the Community Involvement Coordinator for the Arizona Department of Environmental Quality Remedial Project Section. With us tonight, we have Adam Nagel and Michael Morales, who are the project managers for the 5 East Central Phoenix sites. And you'll meet them in a few minutes when they start their presentations. I do notice we have at least one of our Community Advisory Board members here tonight. Thank you for coming. Want to point out a couple of things. If you have questions, feel free during the presentations or after or at the end of the meeting, feel free to ask them in chat. You can reach chat by, if you're in full screen, well, either way, full screen or not, you go to your search bar, it'll have a chat thing, or you can raise your hand. That is, if you're in full screen, you'll see a thing at the bottom for reactions, and raising hands is within reactions. If you are not in full screen, you'll have to click on the 3 little dots for more and click on reactions, and it'll get you to the raise hand icon. Or if you can't do either of those for whatever reason, feel free to find a pause to just go ahead and ask your question. It's pretty informal. Don't need to worry about stepping on any toes here. Let's see. We are recording the meeting. This will be available on our website, probably not till Monday. However, I can send it out to anyone as early as tomorrow if they need it, as well as copies of our presentations will be put on the website. Again, I can send those out as well to anybody who requests them. Okay, so let's get into it. The very first thing I just want to talk about, let me share a different document, is we need, oops, apologies. We need CAB members. Let me find that real quick. Sorry, I'm having trouble seeing it. There. No, that's not it. I'm sorry, I think I closed it out. Hold on one second. There it is. Not sure why it's not, sorry, I'm not sure why it's not showing it. Little glitch. There we go. Okay. Oops. There we go. Okay, so we need CAB members. We are down to 5 CAB members for this site, Community Advisory Board members, and that is the minimum amount of board members that we need to have to keep the advisory board functioning. So I know a lot of you that are here have been here many, many times and might even work for various municipalities and agencies that are associated with the sites. You can still serve on the CAB if you'd like. You simply need to live in the area of one of the sites or be affected by it, or maybe you work in the area. It's a pretty loose definition of who can serve on the CAB. So what is the CAB?
Barbara?
Yes.
It was my understanding it was Maricopa County. Is that not correct anymore?
Well, what it says is that what statute said, or maybe it's rule, says you have to live in the area or work in the area or be affected by the plumes. Yeah, generally, I mean, it says that generally Maricopa County is probably okay. That's not the official, thing, but.
Okay. One other thing might be have a rental property near one of these. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we talked about this. Yeah, that's absolutely, you're affected by that because you own property in the area. So.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you didn't know, CAB is simply a group of citizens who are interested in the cleanups going on at the sites. We meet at least once a year, maybe every year and a half. Unless there are reports coming out, then we may meet more often to discuss reports, simply to provide more information to the community and hopefully answer questions and help the information about the cleanups get out into the community. The main responsibilities of CABs are to not only hear what's going on, ask questions, let their friends, neighbors, coworkers, everybody know about what's going on in case anybody needs to know. It's just another step for getting information out into the community. As I said, we must have 5 members. We're down to 5 right now. This has always been a pretty big CAB, but we've lost some people for various reasons. So if you know of anybody that you think might be interested, please contact me. I can send you a CAB application. You can also get those applications at any of our East Central Phoenix web pages, which are shown on this slide right here. So you can download the CAB application from there. So that's it. Just a quick little plea for anybody who might be interested, or if you know anybody that's interested, please let them know so we can get more members on the CAB. Anybody have any questions about that? Nope. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to introduce you to Michael Morales, who's going to present first on the 24th Street and Indian School site. Michael, if you want to introduce yourself and go on into your presentation, that'd be great. Thank you.
Sorry about that. Good evening. My name is Michael Morales. I'm the project manager for a couple of these East Central Phoenix sites that we'll be discussing tonight. First of those sites being the 24th Street and Grand Canal. So I'll be providing a brief update on both these sites here this evening. So 24th Street and Grand Canal. Let's see. Well, here we have a overview of the WQARF process, and you're probably going to see a similar slide in all the presentations tonight, so I can go over this in a little more detail if you're not familiar. But with the WQARF process, we start off with the preliminary investigation, and that's when ADEQ receives some information about the potential for contamination. And within that preliminary investigation, we go out and perform an investigation and confirm if a release has in fact occurred. And if a release has occurred and it meets the criteria, then the site will be listed onto the WQARF registry. Following the WQARF registry, the site moves into the remedial investigation, where we're essentially investigating the nature and extent of contamination at the site. From there, we move on to the feasibility study, where we start looking at the separate alternative remedies that might be implemented at the site. From the feasibility study, we have a less aggressive remedy, a more aggressive remedy, and a reference remedy, which is somewhere in the middle between the less aggressive and more aggressive remedies. Feasibility does also propose a remedy for the site in the document. Moving into the proposed remedial action plan, where ADEQ proposes a remedial action from the feasibility study. We also solicit comments from the public regarding that proposed remedy. And then we transition into the record of decision, which is the process where we are right now with this site. And with the record of decision, that's the point where ADEQ selects the remedy for the site. Following that, we move into remedy implementation, where we start taking on those measures that are called out in the record of decision. We'll stay in the remedy implementation phase until we achieve our remedial objectives at the site, and at that point, the site is delisted. Here we have a site detail map that shows the 2 separate plumes. It shows 24th and Grand Canal, and also 32nd Street and Indian School Road plumes. And these 2 plumes travel along the same flow path, very similar flow paths from their respective source area properties. However, they are at 2 separate depths. And the 24th and Grand Canal plume is the shallow plume, and the 32nd Indian School Road plume is deeper as it moves down gradient. So these are 2 distinct plumes. A little bit of background on the site. Tetrachloroethylene, or PC, is the contaminant of concern for this site, and that's resulting from releases at multiple dry cleaning facilities that operated near the intersection of 24th Street and Thomas Road here in Phoenix. Currently, our current impacted media is groundwater. We have exceedances above the aquifer water quality standards. At this time, we were able to remediate soil via soil vapor extraction technology that was implemented as an early response action in the 2000s. Current conditions, we have a long and diffuse plume. Right now, the maximum concentration is 27.2 micrograms per liter. We currently perform semi-annual groundwater monitoring at the site. We had not too long ago wrapped up an in situ chemical oxidation ozone sparge pilot study, and that was completed in 2022. We do have a potential receptor at the site, and that being a Salt River project water supply well that's in the vicinity of the plume. So here I have a groundwater plume map. I mentioned we do semi-annual monitoring. This data is projecting the results from the September 2023 monitoring event, and during that event we capture the full network. So this is a complete set of all the data, and what we see is the plume that extends down gradient in the southwest direction from the source area property near 24th and Grand Canal. It is about 1.5 miles down gradient of the source area property, so it is a pretty a long plume. Depth of water out here is encountered at about 90 feet, with contamination for this site ranging between 90 and 130 feet below ground surface. Highest concentration observed during this event was 14 micrograms per liter, which was in a monitoring well MW17. I don't know if you can see my cursor here, but that well is located in between the Grand Canal and the source area property near 24th Street and Thomas. Last year we did have an uptick in concentration at this down gradient well MW24 MW23S, and that well was installed around about 2021, and it had previously been below the AWQS, and during the September 2023 monitoring event, it crept slightly above the AWQS. So we do have a dash line in this area. We're actually performing groundwater monitoring earlier this month. It was completed, so we'll look at that data, see what those results, see if there's any change in concentration there. But we could potentially need to install additional groundwater monitoring wells further down gradient just to button up those dash lines at the site. So here we have a historical groundwater concentration trend map plot. What we see is that prior to any early response action, SVE, the concentrations fluctuated above 1,000 micrograms per liter. Following the implementation of SVE in 2016 and 2017, the concentrations began to decline. We did implement that in situ chemical oxidation ozone sparge pilot study in 2020. And what we've seen is that the monitoring well shown here, it's tracking in the dark orange color, was 24 AS01, which is a source area well. So obviously that well had always had the high impacts at the site historically. And what we've seen after that pilot study was that the concentrations in that well dropped below the AWQS. They did creep up a little bit higher, but we were able to knock down the concentrations at the source area property, which is good news because now that allows the rest of the plume to kind of naturally attenuate. And so hopefully what we see is we'll continue to see a downward gradient in these concentrations over time. So for our activities over the next 12 to 18 months, I mentioned we had performed groundwater semi-annual monitoring earlier this month. The next event will be scheduled for the spring in 2025. As I mentioned, we may have to install additional down gradient monitoring wells to button up the plumes, but that's really dependent on the concentrations that we get back. And hopefully we can finalize the ROD within the next 12 to 18 months. And here's my contact information that is readily available. And with that, I'll open it up for some questions. If
There's
not,
no questions in the chat. If anybody thinks of a question on any of these presentations at the end, we can also ask questions then. Michael's going to stick around for the whole meeting, so you can ask questions then. But I don't see any questions now, so we'll probably move on.
all right. So here I have 32nd Indian School Road, and once again, I'll be providing a brief update on site activities. So here's the same wharf process. We're currently in the ROD. The proposed remedial action plan was issued in August of 2020. So right now we're finalizing the ROD and hopefully moving on into remedy implementation. So we have that same site detail map. Once again, 2 plumes flowing across very similar flow paths, but at different depths. And with 32nd A School, this is the deeper plume, and I'll discuss some of the contaminant depths on an upcoming slide. Contaminants of concern, tetrachloroethylene or PCE, resulting from a release at multiple dry cleaners and a former service shop in the vicinity of 32nd Street and Indian School Road. We currently have contaminants of concern exceeding the AWQS in groundwater. So currently our impacted media is just groundwater. We had previously addressed the soil contamination via soil vapor extraction and some source removal. Same story with 24th and Grant Canal. This is a long and diffuse plume. It's a little bit longer, about twice as long, with the maximum concentrations at 28 micrograms per liter out here. Current remedial actions, semi-annual groundwater monitoring. We did wrap up an enhanced reductive dechlorination pilot study in 2022. So at this point, we're just focused on groundwater monitoring. We do have 2 separate potential receptors out here, and those being a Salt River Project water supply well in the area and a City of Phoenix supply well in the down gradient area. So here we have the plume map. This is the semi-annual monitoring results from September of 2023. This plume extends about 3 miles down gradient in the southwest direction of the source area properties. Depth to water at this site varies. Near the source area, it's at about 65 feet. When you move further down gradient towards the toe of that plume, it's at about 90 feet. Contamination, a little bit different out here. When you're near the source area property, contamination is about 65 feet. When you move in that down gradient vicinity near the toe of the plume, we're looking more at like 300 feet below ground surface. So all the infrastructure that we have in these down gradient areas, they're deep wells that are around or about 300 feet. Highest concentration observed during this sampling event was 28 micrograms per liter, and that concentration is about mid plume at VCMW 20, which is near the Grand Canal. It's near Thomas Road and the Grand Canal. We do have some dash lines there that we're hoping to button up with some additional monitoring this year. There are some additional wells that weren't sampled during this event, so hopefully we can get some data. Once again, we sampled those earlier this month. Hopefully we can get the data back and tighten up some of those lines. But similar to 24th, if we find that we need some additional groundwater monitoring wells, we're going to look into installing those to make sure we have full delineation of the plume. Here we have historical groundwater concentrations versus time plot. And what we see with this site, the concentrations were a little bit higher. I think we were looking at 10,000 micrograms per liter, in around about 2004. Good news is that we did, jump in and implement some early response action, that being soil vapor extraction near the source areas. So that did help with bringing the concentrations down. And those concentrations have pretty much kind of been on a steady decline for years now. Good news is, we're currently at 28 micrograms per liter. That's it's a lot better than being as high as we were historically out there. So we're trending in the right direction, and we'll continue to monitor concentrations as we go. So for the next 12 to 18 months, we'll continue on with the semi-annual groundwater monitoring. Also mentioned that we will, we may need to install some additional monitor wells. So that's TBD at this time. And hopefully we can get the record of decision finalized as well. With that, here's my contact information again, but I'll open it up for questions again. All right. Well, I will be here till the end of the meeting if anything comes up. So thank you for your time.
Thanks, Michael. All right. Let me pull up the next one. There we go. Okay, we're going to move on to 38th Street and Indian School Road, and the project manager is Adam Nagel. I'm going to let you introduce yourself, Adam, and take it away.
Hi, everybody. I'm Adam Nagel. I'm project manager for 38th, for 40th, and for 48th wharf sites. So I'll give you an update for those. Here we are in the wharf process for 38th. This site was delisted. Oh, Jolene, are you talking? Do you have something? I saw your mic on. Anyway, this site was actually delisted in 2018 after some injections. However, in the following year, after some follow-up sampling, it was determined that we didn't quite get it all, so it had to be reopened and put it back on the registry. So currently, we are still gathering more data to revise the feasibility study for the site. And if you go on the next slide, this site is nestled between Michael's 32nd and 24th site and the 40th Street and Osborne site. Relatively one of the smaller plumes. The contaminants out there is PCE. That's from dry cleaners who had operations from the 70s to mid 90s. There was an SVE system out there that remediated the soil vapor. So the only impacted media out there is the groundwater. There is a SRP well as a potential receptor. However, it is a little bit adjacent to the plume, and it's not directly in the flow path. So we'll continue monitoring the plume and make sure it doesn't impact that SRP well. Next slide. What we've currently been doing is collecting more data, doing via semi-annual groundwater sampling. Our last round was in March of this year. Saw at about 7.5 to 121 micrograms per liter of PCE out there. Concentrations have been on the decreasing end, especially up gradient, and remaining relatively stable in most monitoring wells out there. We this past winter we did a pump test out there in one of the wells, and wherein we had a pump installed in the well, and we pumped out a bunch of water, and we gauged the water levels in surrounding monitoring wells to see how much drawdown there was from that pumping action. And from all that data, we get a lot of good data for the lithology and how the water is flowing through there. So we're able to calculate hydroconductivity about 29 feet per day out there. The site. Here is a approximation of the plume out there in blue. You notice that the SRP well is cross gradient, that light blue arrow showing that the water is traversing the site to the southwest. I have a select grouping of wells out there. You see in CMW10 is the highest concentration, about 120 micrograms per liter. And our down gradient well is at about 23 micrograms per liter. That down gradient plume needs a little bit more definition on there. So we are proposing to put out some more monitoring wells out there down gradient to kind of button up that down gradient side. So this is CMW 10, and that was that highest concentration well that we showed on the last slide. It is you know, it's steadily decreasing out there, which is really good to see. If you go to the next slide, it should be well 19, and it's been holding steady for a while now, and hopefully will continue that way. In the next year or so, we're going to be continuing collecting data from all the wells out there, VOCs, and we're going to be installing 2 groundwater models down gradient, like I said, to button up that down gradient portion of the plume, and to kind of differentiate it from Michael's 32nd plume. So we could see as it moves down gradient, as that plume migrates, we'll be able to differentiate a little bit between this plume, these well, the Michael's plume is here, and 38th Street plume is there. You know, so hopefully we'll get that delineation. That's my goal. Here's my contact information. If you have any questions, reach out.
All right, any questions for Adam on this
138.
site?
I actually have a question for all of you. When you're talking about putting these groundwater monitoring wells in there, has anybody identified if the plumes actually have reached the groundwater, or is still reasonably above it?
So the plumes are within groundwater. Like I said, the only impact media out there is the groundwater. So
Okay.
there's no vadozone, there's no soil impacts out there.
Okay, that's what I'm asking, because you said the only media impacted is the groundwater. I wasn't
Yep.
sure if it, yes, definitely had been impacted, or it was because everything had been already drawn out through the soil vapor extraction in the ground or
Right.
in the dirt, and that's
So
the only.
So the SV system was up by Rose Formal Wear up there, and that the soil impacts were contained to that source area. So that's where we put the SV system in, and that's where it got cleaned up.
Okay.
And the water depth of water is about 60 feet out here, so it's well below that.
Okay.
That previous impact of that soil, basically. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
So Adam, there's no remaining source.
Not to our knowledge.
Okay, so the SVE, that work has been completed, and okay.
I think the SVE was in mid 90s. I think it was from 95 to 96-ish. I think. Don't quote me on that, but off the top of my head, I think that's where it was installed and did that response action to remediate the soils. And like I said, they also did ISCO out there in 2018, in situ chemical oxidation. So we injected an oxidant to try to clean up the PC, and it wasn't comprehensive enough. So had to be relisted, and we have to collect more data. That's why we're here for it.
Okay, so there's no plan yet. You're still in the data collection phase.
We're still in the data collection and for the feasibility study to revise that and come up with some alternatives to how to remediate this plume.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Anybody else?
Hey, Adam. This is Beth Zima.
Hi, Beth.
Are there any wells that are below the aquifer water quality standard?
Yes, I don't have them all illustrated out here, but there are wells that are kind of side gradient to this and
Okay, that are defining them.
yeah,
Okay, I was
don't
just
have-
wondering when I was as I was staring at this map, I was like,
Right.
wait a minute.
I think you get a little bit too busy for it, but it's all in our published documents out there.
Any other questions?
I had a quick question about the, sorry, back to the 32nd and Indian School site. And you may have already said this, but I may have missed it. Is the ROD contingent on resolving some issues with the City of Phoenix and SRP wells, or did you say that it was contingent on some other wells? I may have missed it and not heard it correctly, so I just wanted to go back to that.
Yeah, no, sorry about that. No, I didn't indicate that the issuing the record of decision was contingent on anything. We're working through some administrative items and some technical items, and we're working through those.
Okay, got it. So I just didn't know if something about the drilling of the wells was a prerequisite for issuing that. So thank you for clarifying that.
Sure.
And Michael, this is Andrea Martinez. Did you say when that rod would be out? I remember the 24th and Grand, you said it would be about another 12 to 18 months. But
Yeah,
what about your...
same time frame, hopefully in the next 12 to 18 months. That's
Okay,
my goal.
thank you.
Mhm.
Perfect, thank you.
Anything else? Okay.
My
We
turn
will go on
again.
to 40th Street.
This is 40th and Osborne. This one is, if you go to next one, this one is in the PRAP stage. I'm currently writing that PRAP right now. It's in draft process, so it's going forward, and that's where we're at. So this is a big plume, about 2.5 miles long, right in the smack dab middle of everything right there. If you go to the next slide, it's another PC plume with no official source of the contamination. It's all in the groundwater media for what's it's not in the soil. It's not in the soil vapor. It's definitely all in the groundwater. There is a SRP well that is right on the edge of the plume, and we are planning to sample this well coming up here in the fall, and see what it looks like. And we're currently doing semi groundwater monitoring again. The last time we did it was in March, and about 5.6 to 140 micrograms per liter we found out there. And in most wells, especially the up gradient, they are decreasing. Mid gradient, they're kind of keeping steady. The two down gradient wells, 16 and about 19, we are seeing some uptick, so that plume is migrating to the southwest as it goes along. So we do expect some, a bump up, and then hopefully it comes back down. So here again, I put on a select few wells out here. These is not all of them out there. It defines this plume, but you'll see the SRP well is kind of up gradient and pretty close to it. So we'll be keeping an eye on that well, make sure it's not getting impacted. This is if you go back one, this is BMW 2E. So this is the up gradient well up here, 2E, and I think I have a graph for 17D, which is mid plume. So like I said, the up gradient wells like this one, we were seeing a constant downward trend of PC concentration in those wells. Like next slide, we're seeing in mid plume, we're seeing kind of a more steady state, stable plume. I don't have it on here in this presentation, but that far down gradient well is seeing a little bit of uptick. No, not much, but it's still an uptick, a trend. In the next year or so, we're going to collect more groundwater data. We always need more data. I'm going to put in a down gradient wiring well. just to keep tabs on the plume as it migrates. And then I'm going to finalize this PREP and put it out for public comment. Hopefully, knock on wood, again, don't hold me to this, but hopefully by the end of the calendar year, we should see a PREP coming out for this one. And barring any problems administratively, like Michael said, or technically, we should be getting that PREP out, hopefully.
Adam, you said the end of the calendar year. You mean this
Calendar
year?
year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Why not? Let's go for it. If it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. But hopefully by the end of the fiscal year, it'll definitely happen. Way along. But so we have a good shot at this. So any questions for 40th? Big, long, diffuse plume. It's gonna be fun.
Okay. Nothing in chat. Alrighty. Pull up the next one.
And this should be our final presentation, 48th in Indian School. This one, we just issued this PREP this past summer in July, and it has a 90-day public comment period that's ending on the 7th. A few weeks coming up in November, the 7th, 11th, no, sorry, November 7th.
Adam, I think that's a typo. That's my fault. It's
really?
actually the 5th. Yeah, I think it's
Is it the 5th?
Yeah,
Oh, I thought it was the 7th.
I thought so too. But I think it's the 5th,
Okay.
but it's my fault. So I apologize.
Can we extend it 2 days to make this correct? I don't know. No. All right. Here's 48th. It's upgrading to 40th. And it's been distinctly separate plume from 40th from previous data. And next slide. Another PC plume from 2 dry cleaners that operated out there for a long while that are continuously operating. And there was soil impacts. An SE system from early response action remediated those. And a whole bunch of soil vapor sampling, indoor air sampling was done out there from the school, Arcadia High School out there. A bunch of residential samples were taken, and all came back looking good for the soil and soil vapor. So we're restricted to just the groundwater cleanup now. Luckily, this site doesn't have any potential receptors for the PCE to get to. We're continuously doing semi groundwater modeling for that PCE. The current concentrations are from 14 to about 13 ppb, micrograms per liter. That was in March. And like 40th, we are seeing a little bit uptick in the downgrade monitoring wells as it migrates. So in this, okay. So this map is showing where the source area was up there. The plume is detached from that source area. It's currently just following that groundwater flow path to the southwest. We have SMW19 and BMW5B out there on this map. Basically, those are the 2 wells that are right in the smack dab middle of the plume. Groundwater is about 45 feet below ground surface out here. Next slide.
Just want to point out real quick, Tom Titus, our manager, is in the meeting, and he double checked for us, and it actually is correct in the slide. The comment period ends on the 7th. Somehow I had in my head it was the 5th. So still my mistake, but it is the 7th. The slide is correct.
He added those extra 2 days.
Yeah, he did. He's got power.
Yeah.
All right, great.
So 5B, kind of a steady downward trend, a little bit spiky here and there. And the next one, the more down gradient one in the mid plume, is 19A, seeing a stable to decreasing trend overall, which is what we want out there. So it's looking pretty decent so far. So the PRAP has the remedy in there is monitoring and sampling, basically letting the natural attenuation forces to degrade the PC through dispersion and advection, basically physical processes to lower the PC concentrations below the AWQS. We're going to be sampling all the wells out there for PCE, all the volatile organic compounds, and for some natural attenuation parameters like nitrate, like sulfate, for ethene, basically all the parameters that are associated with the biodegradation, the natural biodegradation of PCE, seeing how much that contributes to the natural degradation of the plume. And we're going to use that data to trigger if we need to spend more time out there. If the plume isn't grading fast enough, we have in the PRAP, I think, 3 extra years of a contingency time to monitor the groundwater. Here's a cost summary for it. So we're going to be doing up to about 15 years of groundwater sampling. It could be lower than that. We're basically looking for about 4 sampling events in a row that all the wells are below 5 micrograms per liter for PCE. Once that happens, we can start to do site closure. We're also doing, like I said, we're groundwater sampling for VOCs. And then we're also doing the M&A, the monitor natural attenuation sampling, to see the biological component of that degradation for up to 15 years as well. Every about 3 years, we're going to look at the data and do a comprehensive study on it and review it and see how the performance is doing for this remediation technology. And then after all that's done, we're going to close the site, basically abandon all the wells out there and patch them up. We do have 2 contingencies, a well installation, which I'm going to go with already because we're seeing that slight uptick in that down gradient well, so I want to proactively put that well down gradient out there as a Sentry well, just to make sure that plume isn't going to run off on us. And like I said, we're also putting in 3 years of contingency for extra years of sampling out there, basically to just in case 15 years isn't enough for it to come down, for the PCE to come down below 5. And we're looking at about, with inflation, about $2.7 million for this, or 15 years. 18 with the contingency. So the remedy is going to meet all of our remedial objectives out there. That's going to be in line with keeping it residential, keeping it mixed use of residential and commercial. It's going to keep everyone safe, and it's going to sorry. It's going to be cost effective. Basically, the concentrations are on the lower end. So as you try other technologies, like be it injections or pump and treat, you get a lot of diminishing returns to get that last bit of PC out of the water. So it's just not cost effective to do it that way. That's why we're just going to be monitoring it and let nature take its course pretty much out there and let it degrade on its own. We're going to continue to do our monitoring out there. We need that data. The wells, basically, I'm going to put in a well that's going to be set at the elevation for 48th. It's going to be screened, kind of where our downgrading well is, and make sure it's going to trap that. And I'm also going to put in a shallower screen well to differentiate out any question of, is this going to mix with the downgrading 40th wharf site? So it's going to be installed a little bit shallower to show that that they're kind of separate plumes in theory. So the public comment period ends November 7th. We figured that out, and then we're going to start to write the rod for this site and incorporate any of your comments, questions, and all that. So any questions for the PRAP for this so far?
Yes, I have a question. I think you mentioned that there were no receptors at this site.
Right.
But if I recall in reviewing the PRAP, it does indicate that the source of contamination in the down gradient SRP well 17.9 east, 7.5 north, which I think indicates in the PRAP it's located in the 40th Street site, was
Right.
actually the source of that contamination is actually from this 40th Street site. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Right. So it's at there was a boring put in pretty much on this map right where North 42nd Place is, and it came back with no detections of PCE. So that's why it was ruled to be an independent plume. My objective with these two wells is to continue that line of evidence to make sure that they are separated.
So
And that,
are you saying there are two separate plumes from this source, this one and the one that created the source of contamination in the down gradient 17975?
the source for 48th is, like I said, Standy's Cleaners up there.
Yeah.
And the one. For 40th, it is unknown. So it is its own separate plume. As far as the data shows right now, it is its own separate plume. And there's no known source for that 40th and Osborne war site. Now, I won't speculate without clear data whether 48th is contributing to 40th. I don't know. I can't speculate on that. I don't have enough data for that to answer one way or the other. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I guess I'm still a little confused because if I recall correctly, and maybe someone else can chime in here, I thought that the PRAP indicated that the source of contamination, because the PRAP identifies the SRP wells in the area, and one of those wells is the 17975, and then the PRAP concludes, or at least states, that the source of contamination in that well is from this site. So I guess that is.
Are you saying that it was in the PRAP for 48th Street?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
I don't remember writing that in there.
Okay.
I'd have
Maybe
to
I
review
misread.
that. Yeah.
Maybe I misread something.
What it was though is that well, that SRP well that you're talking about is how this whole area became on the registry in the first place. Is I think in the 80s it was sampled and it came back with PCE, right? So they did a whole bunch of investigation then and determined that 48th is coming from these dry cleaners up here, and then 40th is this oddball that they separated, they had data at that time to say, hey, this is a separate plume, you know. That's, you know, the wells that we put in now might change that narrative. I don't know. But for right now, we are considering these two separate plumes.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. The comments on the proposed remedial action plan are due by the 7th, 5 p.m. You can email them to myself or Adam. You can send them in, you can mail them in. They have to be postmarked by the 7th. If you have any questions on how to do that, just give one of us a call. Anybody have any other questions about the remaining presentations that we might have missed? Okay. Well, it sounds like we might be here again soon for another proposed remedial action plan. I do appreciate everybody showing up tonight. If you think of any questions that you had, please contact one of us. We'll be happy to get back to you as soon as possible. And I would say thank you for coming, and we'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting. It is 6:53 p.m. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
for showing up.
you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Hey, Adam. Hey, I'm going to give you a call here in a minute.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, I'm going to end it. Thanks.